Hi, Peter Cooke from OSP Stock Feeds. I'm at the OSP Demo Farm in Otautau, Southland. Property owned by Nick Tomsett and his business Tomsett Dairies Limited, in a joint venture between Nick and us in establishing a method for feeding cows in a simple environment with not too much capital investment. Nick purchased the property last year. This is his first year on the property. It's a 10-year dairy conversion, pasture only system, 20-a-side herringbone shed. Nick's always enjoyed fully feeding his cows, manages his pastures very well, but likes to add supplements where necessary to enhance production. So we believe we've got some good products, good performance-based products that mainly come from our supplier Manildra Stock Feeds in Australia, all non-GMO, and we wanted to prove that through a fairly modest investment of about $120,000 we could put a feeding system into the property and achieve some outcomes that would be beneficial to Nick. We've so far, even though we're only halfway or just over halfway into our first season, we've exceeded the goals that we set for the season. Production's gone very well. Nick will tell you later about the cows that he purchased and has been running on the property. His number is a bit higher than what we first set out, but through a combination of good pasture management and complementing that with our products, we've achieved some really good outcomes, good production, and the financial results that are being reported are showing that even at a $4.60 payout, he's in a virtual break-even situation, which is quite a good achievement. What we wanted to do in setting the property up with Nick was to bring some credibility and independence to the results. So we appointed Brian Mackay from Dairy Production Systems to act as a consultant. Brian comes to the property approximately every 2 months whenever he's in Southland, looks at what Nick's doing, gives it the tick of approval or makes some suggestions or whatever, but most importantly actually produces financial results every time he comes here just to see that things are on track. And those, Brian is very proud of being a fully independent operator, and he gives credibility to what we're doing. So Nick will tell you more about his property and his cows and what he's doing, but so far we can happily say that things are well on track. We set 3-year targets, and so far we're probably exceeding our 2nd-year target already in terms of production per hectare, per cow, total milk solids.
Thanks, Peter. Right now I'm going to talk to you about my cows. The reason why I've brought these cows this season to fit the purpose that we've got for this farm is I wanted a smaller cow because I have heavy soils here. As the previous owner had bigger Friesian cows, and I don't think it really suited this farm. So I've gone with more crossbred cow. I've got a few Jersey, a few red ones, a few Friesians, so I've got a few bigger cows, but mainly smaller cows. As at the start they averaging 450 kgs live weight, and they've grown a bit since then. These cows are BW of 50, so they're not absolutely fantastic breeding cows. I didn't want absolutely awesome cows because I didn't want people to come onto this farm and use the excuse that I had awesome BW cows, and that's why I was doing the production. These cows were all off a grass-based system, so in my opinion they were undergrown, underfed as the system that was before they came here. With this system we're planning to grow these cows, so the first year was always a bit unknown on the production level of these cows as they are growing and producing all at the same time, but with these figures that we're getting, they're definitely producing good milk, so it makes it even better for next season. I think there's huge potential in these cows, as they'll be bigger cows for next season, but not too big that they're going to ruin my soils. I wanted to put in a feed pad as these are heavy soils here, so to protect my soils I really wanted this feed pad to utilise all my silage, as I only had 80 tonne of silage at the start of the season, and as everyone in Southland knows, the start of the season was very wet, and that was a lifesaver for me. I utilised all my silage, and I even had 10 tonne of silage left in the stack at the end, because I didn't have anywhere near the wastage I would have had otherwise, and I didn't have anywhere near the pugging that I would have had otherwise. So I've grown more grass, I've utilised all my silage, and that is one of the reasons why I'm getting very good results this season. So as you can see, these are my cows coming into the cow shed, as they love the DDG high starch mix. Feeding more DDG than high starch at the moment. The flow is awesome at the moment, but at the start the flow wasn't so good, as all these cows were rotary cows, so I had to retrain them in the herringbone, but it doesn't take them long when you're feeding them DDG in the herringbone. Lameness in this herd isn't a problem, and a lot of that is you don't have to use the backing gate to push the cows up. The cows come in at their own will, and usually they leave the shed fairly easily now because they can eat the feed very quickly. At the start we're struggling to get 4 or 5 kgs into them, as they're taking a bit longer to eat, but now I can get 7 kgs into them through the shed, and they'll be finished eating before they're finished milking. So it's fantastic flow, and it's worked really well this season. Even though we've talked a lot about this concentrate feeding with DDG and high starch, myself, I believe that pasture is key to successful farming. To do this on this farm, what I've done is a bit of regrassing, 20% of the farm this year, but also to manage my pasture, I've stocked the place high. So I've ran 4 cows to the hectare when I've had pasture out and crop out. My whole farm, if my whole farm was in, it would be 3.55 cows to the hectare, so it's still high. So all this concentrate feeding is just managing the grass better. And to do that, I always try to run my farm at a slight deficit to utilise that concentrated feeding. If you're wasting your pasture, you're wasting money. And also to do that, I'm a great believer in pre-grazing mowing to increase the cow's intake and to get those milk production levels up higher.
Yeah, so Nick, we're the back of the property. It's you and Nina seem to have really settled in well, and new baby on the way. It's all looking pretty good for you, except for the pasture. Obviously you've missed a bit of the rain that's favoured the rest of the country since New Year, so just looking a bit dry up the top here. What are your plans around that?
Oh well, at the moment the protein has gone out of the grass a bit, and we've got less grass at the moment, so we're feeding quite a bit of DDG, about 4.5 kgs of DDG with 2.5 kgs of high starch. So that's all in the cow shed, so 7 kgs the cows are eating in the cow shed, and when they come out of the cow shed they get 2 kgs of palm kernel, as the palm kernel is cheaper than my silage. But that's the limit that I'm going to do. If things get worse, if we don't get the rain, I'll have to open my silage stack then. That's the plan, just because I still need that amount of roughage in their diet. And at the moment the cows are just holding at 2.1 milk solids a cow, so it's not the best, but the whole reason for doing it is to keep the cows producing the milk in the tough stages, so that when the grass does come away with the rain, the quality will be brilliant, and the cows should maintain 2.1 well into February with a lot less feed in their diet.